What's up, Team Diadem? We're back today with a special episode of Courtside Sessions, the podcast for junior players, parents, and coaches. Today, we're not going to be sitting down with a top-performing athlete or a coach. We're not going to be sitting with a psychologist or a parent. We're here with Mark Kokavec, a shoe designer who most recently worked on Diadem's Courtburst shoes, and he's going to have a lot to say about that process. So I think it'll be a very interesting episode. So without further ado, Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you in. I got to sit down with Mark this morning and learn a lot about the Courtburst shoe that he designed for Diadem. But I think first, let's start talking about a little bit of your tennis background.
Yeah, I've been a shoe designer for many, many years now. I've worked at a number of athletic brands. I started out my career with Reebok, and which was pretty cool because I do have a tennis background. My brother actually played on the ATP tour. He got up to about 100 of a ranking.
Can you remind me his name?
Bobby Kokavec.
That's awesome. So you got to go kind of watch his progression through tennis as a junior. Did he play college?
Yeah, no, he went right to pro from high school. So he did the futures and that circuit, and then he went right to that. So he traveled, pretty much his whole life and stuff. So what was cool being at Reebok, I was able to kind of meet up with him at all the tournaments he was going to, and the ones that I was going for, research and talking with athletes and stuff like that. So we got to see each other a lot more when I started my job. So
yeah, it's very cool. When you were working with Reebok, was there any particular athletes that you were working with specifically?
Yep. So when I started, we just had signed Venus Williams. You may know her, but we did have Michael Chang, Todd Martin, Pat Rafter. So we had a good Arancha Sanchez Vicario. So we had a good plethora of athletes that were doing well for Reebok, and I got to work on a lot of the tennis product. I actually ended up managing the category early on. So that was kind of cool. Like my passion in tennis and design kind of met together, and ended up there.
It is very cool. What is it like working with kind of athletes throughout the pinnacle of their game on something that's so important that they're wearing every day and really impacts their results on the court?
Yeah. Well, I've worked with tennis athletes, basketball athletes, runners, and with every sport comes different parameters that you have to design towards. So from a functional standpoint, you have a certain amount of things you have to work on, but then there's that athlete that they have their needs and their specific wants. So you have to try to balance what's good for the athlete because they're going to be endorsing and wearing the product, but you have to make sure that the regular person that's wearing this is also going to feel comfortable in it. It's going to serve their purpose as well. So it's just a balancing act there. But it's always fun to sit with pro athletes and, get to hear their input on things. And some of them have critical expertise, it's actually valuable, but others, they just say, I kind of like it, and that's fine with me. So, everybody's different. You have to adjust how you design, as you go along.
Yeah, I imagine that's kind of an interesting dynamic and something that you probably got better at over time, right? It wasn't, or were you naturally just able to work with the athletes, get the design, or is that something that you learned as you went on?
I think as a designer, having an athlete be part of it is good, but you're always trying to figure out what's the coolest and trendiest thing that you can build. But as time has gone, athletes have become more synonymous with the product and a lot more input, especially because of the style factor, and shoes aren't always just worn for the performance function. It's also for casual wear. So having these athletes have their style come into it, we're a lot of times meeting with them and asking them, what are your favorite colors? What inspires you? Or, what kind of paintings do you have? We'll go to their place of, where they live and just get a sense of who they are and try to extract things that we see and we feel, being in their, realm, and then try to get that into the product.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me, and I think that's a really cool piece that I think everybody that's watching will like too.
Yeah.
And then so what'd you do after Reebok?
After Reebok, I was at Converse, where I headed up the basketball program, and at the time we had signed Dwayne Wade. Well, Chris Bosh was the top basketball star at the time, but they had the first school, it was called. So they had a number of athletes, and Dwayne Wade was one of them. But at the time, he wasn't the main guy. So it was kind of funny. They didn't really know what they had, but he ended up becoming a big superstar. And I worked, I kind of managed the first Dwayne Wade signature shoe with another designer. But before we actually had that signature shoe, there was another basketball product that was for the whole Converse line that he was wearing. He went to the Olympics with it, the Warrior shoe. So it was fun getting to meet him down in Miami and talk to him for a little bit and get to know his personality. So
yeah, totally.
It was
What's the big difference between basketball and tennis shoes and designing for those?
They're fairly similar. The surface is obviously the biggest differentiator, but the amount of impact that happens, the stresses from a lateral standpoint, they're very similar. Like, you really have to worry about making sure you design the product so it doesn't have a big rollover when you're doing lateral cuts. Mm-hmm. So with basketball and tennis, they're pretty close together from a functional standpoint.
After hearing from Mark, I couldn't help myself but offer you guys a discount on the Courtburst shoes. So make sure you stay tuned for the end of this message to get the code. First of all, let's take a second to talk about how awesome and innovative these shoes are. They're perfect for tennis players. They're going to be supportive. They're going to play fast. And maybe most importantly, they're going to be comfortable right outside of the box. Not to mention, they come in 4 great colorways right now, and we have some special plans for more coming down the line. So make sure you guys don't walk to diademsports.com and use the code CSSCB to get 15% off your Courtburst today. Again, that's CSSCB to get 15% off the newest innovation in Diadem Sports history. Yeah, I love that. And then what did you do after you got out of basketball? What was next?
After that, I went to this unknown company called Under Armour. Mm-hmm. So at the time, they obviously specialized in apparel. Then they got into footwear, and I was the second designer that came in to build their footwear division. And that was a pretty cool experience because they didn't have anything established at the time. So you had to wear a lot of hats and take a lot of responsibility on a lot of different things. But it was busy and a lot of work, but it was also fun because you were building something from the ground level up. And I think I was there for about 6 years, but they were it was a fun time.
That's what I remember when I was probably like early teens in the height of my youth athletic career when Under Armour came out with the shoes. And I remember that was a huge deal for them to get into that market. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what that experience was like working with a brand and bringing a new product in their lineup out to the people, because I imagine that you have to start fully from scratch and it's probably a little bit of an interesting process. Yeah.
No, we started with some running shoes, some training shoes. They actually did a commercial at the Super Bowl. I don't even remember how much they spent on that marketing ad, but it was just a big launch. So it was exciting being part of like something that they were really exploding and putting a lot of money towards. But when you're starting something from scratch, there's so many things with shoes that you have to think about. You have to start with the last, which is the foot form, and everything kind of gets built around that. So the top of the shoe gets created around that, and then the bottom of the shoe has to go into that as well. And if you have a last that doesn't fit right, or it's too tight, too small, too short, then the end product's just not going to feel good for the consumer. So, starting from scratch with everything, but being able to drive the direction yourself was a great thing. I got to present to Kevin Plank, who was the creator and the owner of Under Armour. So, it was a small group. There was like 4 or 5 of us, sitting in a small little room, put our sketches up on the wall, and, you have this guy, picking, what he likes. And so it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's been cool to see Under Armour take off in that segment, and now they have shoes for pretty much every sport and all that.
Yeah.
And I imagine you were probably a big guiding force behind all that.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what was after Under Armour?
After Under Armour, I ended up going to New Balance, and I was working on some running shoes there, but my main focus was the broad market product. So, companies, young artists and stuff that, I want to design the new Jordan shoe, but, that's all fun for sure. But the company doesn't make all their money. Well, Jordan's not the best example, but the company doesn't make all their money just on a couple, high end, $300 shoes. What gives them, padding in the bank is having these lower priced offerings that, more consumers can buy into. So, it's oftentimes overlooked, but it's an important business. So I worked on product that was around the $80 range, $85 range and below. And it encompassed, running product, training, walking, outdoor, some made in the USA product, just a lot of just product that does million pair programs, so high volume, but at a lower, more affordable price.
What's that like going from doing the high performance, working with like Dwayne Wade and Venus Williams on their shoes, to then going to more the lower price point, mass market? What's the difference and challenge for you as a designer there?
Well, first of all, it's not as glamorous, So, I was fortunate enough to have the access and the interaction with athletes early on in my life. So I was satisfied with that. But having an impact with the lower cost product, kind of gave me more pleasure as I got older with more experience. So it's easy. It's not easy to design a shoe for, $200, but you have a little bit more leeway with things. It's actually difficult to design a shoe and build a shoe for a small, like, fraction of what you would a high-end product. So, your hands are a little bit more tied trying to figure out, the coolest mesh material that you can get at the cheapest price, because, you're going to be making 1 million pairs of these things, and it has to hit a certain price so that you can be profitable as a company. So, making it look as cool as it can be with as least amount of parts, it's a tough job, but it's definitely rewarding, because once you do hit that right design, and then you see the sales come in, and it's like it's a successful program, then that's kind of it's very satisfying to know that you see people walking around. You go to Orlando, to Disney or something, and you see all these people wearing your shoe. They're not wearing, I don't see many people wearing that,
the higher end shoes. So it's cooler for you to be able to see your design actually out more and on more people's feet. It's make a bigger impact.
I see a lot more of them. Yeah. The lower end stuff than I do the higher end product that I did. So
okay, that's really interesting. And then I think your latest foray in the shoe business has been working with Diadem on the new Courtburst shoes, right?
Yep.
I'd love to learn a little bit about what that process was like, and learn about the shoe too.
Yeah. So when Evan and AJ were looking around for to build their footwear to create their first shoe, they knew somebody that knew me, and we ended up getting together. I was in the area, luckily, and came down, had a phone call, ended up coming to the office here, talking with the guys, very casual. It clicked early on, and the energy that I felt here was great. And I liked doing, the startup process, so at Under Armour it was fun building that from scratch, and that's what this was going to be. So that really intrigued me. So, we kind of joined together and had to start from scratch. So we had to go out to Massachusetts to a last builder and get our last made, and go to a material show and figure out what vendors we're going to use and suppliers to kind of get the right materials in place. And been a lot of back and forth with designs early on, and initial designs that we first started were like light years away from what the actual shoe looks like today. So it's in a great spot, but that's how the process it evolves and evolves and evolves, just gets better and better and better. So at the end of the day, you have a really great shoe to kind of unveil.
Totally. And I think one of the interesting things for me, as just someone that's been here and watched you come in and do the meetings and seen some of the prototypes over the course of time, is that this is a multiple years in the making. We're releasing the shoe in 2024, but you've been working on it for years now, and all the different prototypes and everything has been cool to see that. I'd love to hear a little bit about when the way that the shoe has evolved from the first prototype to now this finished Courtburst product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it's almost been 2 years since we initially started our conversation. So the timeline does typically take about 18 months. So from when you start creating the brief, what the project scope is going to be, and then you go through the design process, the development process, commercialization. By the time it gets to retail, it's about 18 months. So we're excited to be at that point now. But the process starts with the last, and once you have that established, so you get your heel heights, you get the size, the length, the girths all set up, you can go into the design process. And, the sky was kind of the limit, because we don't have anything at Diadem that we needed to use as a starting point to kind of build on. So this will be that shoe that starts, so as we evolve, we'll kind of go from the Courtburst into a new product. But at the time, it was like just the pages are blank, and whatever we do, we find our path.
What was kind of the initial inspiration for the design? Because I know in the tennis shoe market, there's some different elements. Some shoes are faster, some shoes are more durable. What was the end goal when you guys started with the Courtburst?
We obviously wanted to create a shoe that looked cool, that was fashionable. It was a nice looking shoe. We wanted to try to simplify the amount of pieces that we had on it. So create a more of a sleeker design, something that you could dial up using color or tone down with color, so it's not as in your face. We focus a lot of attention on the bottom unit, so the midsole, outsole, some of the components, the technical features, because we really wanted to build a shoe that would perform with the Nike, the Nikes of the world, all Adidas, Mizuno's, all the top brands. But we try to keep it just simple and provide the technical features that they need.
That's awesome. Let's talk about some of those technical features and a little bit about what people will see in the Courtburst.
Yeah. So the shoe has a dual density midsole. Actually, first of all, we have two outsoles. We got a clay court herringbone pattern that is optimal for clay quarters, and then we have a hard court version as well. So a lot of durability from the carbon rubber outsole.
And those two outsoles, the clay court versus the hard court, if you're for a lot of the players in America here, we're going to be looking at the hard court shoe as an option for hard true and the green clay, whereas the clay court shoe is really designed specifically for the red clay, correct?
Yeah. The clay, like the traditional herringbone pattern, it's kind of like a squeegee, like a wiper blade shape. So it's allowed to kind of move a little bit, so that if the clay does get captured in there and packed in. The blades, as they move, they kind of withdraw the clay out of it, and the players kind of tap the shoes a little bit. But this is kind of the most ideal shape, and it provides the best flexibility and at the same time release of clay. But you can kind of see the hard court, this blue version here. It's just, it's also herringbone, but it has a lot more surface coverage of rubber just to give you a lot more traction on that surface and durability.
Sweet. So I think the big thing there is in the U.S. at the beginning, we're just going to carry the hard court version, and that'll be fine on the hard true and green clay. And then in Europe, we'll have both options available for everybody that's playing on the red clay over there. And then eventually we'll have both options available in America too.
Yep.
And then what other elements are there besides that outsole bottom?
Yep. So as you go up from the outsole, we have a 2-density midsole. So in the heel of the shoe, just under your heel, there's a softer density foam. So as you're impacting and kind of standing or rushing the net, your heel will strike and just give a little bit of extra softness. But then as you transition to the forefoot, this white material here is a little bit denser and provides that lateral structure so that when you do start cutting, you're not going to squish the side and have your foot kind of roll over. So it's a little bit of a stiffer compound that still provides cushioning, of course, but tries to stabilize you from lateral motions.
And that's perfect. That's the little piece on the edge, on the outside edge, it sticks out a little bit. And like you're saying, for the lateral motion, when you press hard to the side, your foot's not going to roll over, right?
Yeah. So as you go from the midsole, we also wanted to add a technical feature that as you do a hard lateral cut, this plastic component and it's just on the lateral side, it provides extra structure and support just higher than the midsole a bit, so that when you do cut so what happens when you're cutting, the rubber will contact the ground, create friction, but the upper still wants to shift and slide. So we want to keep that upper from sliding over the midsole. So by creating this plastic piece here that kind of cradles the forefoot, we try to keep that foot from rolling over and being able to get you to spring back to the other direction as quickly as possible without you over exceeding that.
So it kind of makes me think of like when you're in a car and it's moving and then it stops, but everything inside the car is like still moving
keeps going
forward.
Yeah, exactly. It's something like that. So we're trying to prevent that, almost like a seatbelt. So that seatbelt will keep you there so that you can cut the other way.
Very cool. What else I know there's some stuff on the inside with the tongue and those sort of things too, some stability there.
Yeah. We have, if we stick with the upper, right here in the toe, this is a big feature. So for tennis, as you know, you toe drag a lot. So you want to kind of protect that area as much as possible. And since this upper is made entirely of mesh, we don't have any like synthetics or, thick leathers that provide that protection and durability. We need to cover the toe with something that's going to not have holes through your mesh. So we put this material over the toe, and it's a little bit more predominant on the medial side, on the inner side of your shoe. Of the toe, so that when you're doing any toe drags, during serves or stretches, things like that, you'll have this plastic kind of material. It's a softer plastic, so it does flex nicely, but it also does provide durability, and it'll just lengthen the amount of time that you can use the shoe, and so you're not kind of blowing through the mesh material.
Yeah, I think that'll be a great feature, especially for a lot of the high performance junior players that are really wearing down their shoes on the toe drags. That should add some extra durability there.
Yep. So you mentioned in the tongue. So we do have. There are some. So this is a piece of tongue that I cut out of the shoe. So we have these tongue wings that get sewn into the lower part of the shoe, the strobel area, and I just hate when I wear shoes and the tongue shifts over to one side. and then it exposes the top of my foot. And, there's blood vessels and things like that, and veins and nerves that are in that location. So when you get a lot of lace bite, your foot might start to feel numb. So by keeping that tongue with all the padding that it has in, centered, so your laces can be, away from your foot, these tongue wings kind of keep that in the right location. And we do also have the lace loop here as well. So you can have that where it holds it up. It's not 100% necessary because we already have these, but we do provide that additional lace through to kind of keep it in place.
That's awesome. Is there any other particular elements worth mentioning right now? Maybe the insoles?
Yeah. So the inside of the shoe, so we wanted to provide a shoe that has, as much cushioning that we can, but keeping it as low to the ground as possible so that you're not, having a high center of gravity. So you're going to be able to stick to the ground better, but we still want to have as much cushioning underfoot. So with balancing that, we also have this insert that obviously goes inside the shoe, and it's about 5 millimeters thick. It's a molded piece, and that kind of gives extra structure internally to kind of conform to your foot shape. And especially where the arch is, this kind of wraps up and gives you that arch support. It's minimal, but it does do more than if you just had a flat die cut piece. And what's nice is we do have an antimicrobial material in this, so it's not going to eliminate the stink 100%, but it will help with that. And there's some holes in here as well for added breathability and get some like airflow. It's minimal, but every little bit, helps. That you can kind of feel definitely helps.
That's awesome. And then one thing that really stuck out to me was as soon as I put the shoe on, it felt great. Like right out of the box, I felt like I could go to the court and ready to rock. I didn't need to break it in or anything like that. Is that pretty standard for this Courtburst?
For regular product on the marketplace, I don't think so. Everything that I put on, usually I need about like a week or so to kind of break it in. So that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that this shoe had. And that's a enormous bullet point for this shoe, is that when you put this on, it's going to feel like you've been wearing it already for about a week and that you've broken it in. So if you buy this, you should be able to go on the court, like right after you purchase it, go on the court, put it on, and be able to play, a 2-3 hour match without any problem, as opposed to buying the shoe and having it as your practice shoe where you put it on, practice for a week with it, but then your game shoe is already broken in. So this, you should be able to, this is your game shoe off right away, like right from the store. So
yeah, I think that's pretty exciting. And probably my favorite feature of the shoe is that part of it. I also thought that it played pretty fast. And I wonder if that's was part of the idea in the design.
Yeah, so this was more in the realm of a speed product. So we wanted this again to be lower to the ground, lightweight, something that provides a ton of breathability and structure where you need it. So we didn't want to build a shoe that just had panels all over the place protecting you like 360. We put the protection where you need it, the flexibility where you need it, the comfort where you need it. So hopefully this shoe, being all those things, will just allow you to play longer and not get tired as quick.
100%. What do you think the future of Diadem shoe line, the Courtburst series and everything will look like? I know there's probably already in the works some new iterations and things like that. Can you give us some foreshadowing or anything about
Yeah, I mean, I can't divulge too much, but there are already a couple projects in the works right now. But where we go with this, we will get more feedback from athletes as we go. So the more athletes that we sign on and get under the roster, we'll be able to use them for the feedback and input and be able to move forward with more information that kind of gets the Diadem athlete the right product on their feet.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about that for all of our Dynasty team sponsored junior tennis players to get these on their feet and then help us in the design process as we move forward. And they can tell us exactly what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, and we can use that feedback to design the perfect shoe for them. So I think that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that we should talk about for the shoe, or do you think we're good to go and let people try them on for themselves?
No, I think they need to go out, grab a pair, or at least try one on. See what you think. If you like the fit and the feel when you're at the store, you'll probably like the way this thing performs on court. So
100%. And I'm really thankful that Mark was able to take the time and talk to us today. He's really a top leader in the shoe space, especially in the tennis market. And what he and the team here have done with the Courtburst shoe, I think is going to be a great addition to our product line. And I'm excited for you guys all to try it. So keep staying in the loop with our Courtside Sessions podcast episodes. We have a lot more coming. And as always, we're happy that you guys tuned in. So thank you, and we're out of here.